Okay. We're on the air.
So we gratefully acknowledge the generosity of our learning sponsors. A year of learning by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Peres, Sora Tova Bas Yisrael Dove, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Rachel Mata Bas Asher, friends of Nina Moinister, Nachama Asna Bas Yitzchak Aron, friends of Stephen Vigder, Simcha Melech, Ben Meir Lev Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. Month of Learning, Stanley Presser in memory of his wife, Chayaleah Basev HaKoyen. The children and grandchildren of Vicky and Larry Fish in their honor. Rebecca, Lewis, and Susan Witansky in memory of Rebecca's.
I got mine tomorrow's all set, but
Okay. In memory of Rebecca's uncle and Lewis's brother, Pesach Ben Yosef. A day of learning. We have one today. Pearl Blush in memory of her husband, Moshe Shalom.
good man.
In memory of her husband, Moshe Shalom Ben Yitzchak Halevi. And that's it. All right, we are significantly behind. We got into a whole tumult of why we have to punish the woman if she remarries with only one witness, and it really occupied a lot of time yesterday. Oh, yeah? So we are at the top of Sadi Aleph Amid Beis, Mesiv Ula, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line, the last word of the fifth line. So I'll go as fast as I possibly can to try and catch up, okay? At this point, we have Reb Shimon arguing against the Rav's psak and in accordance with Shmuel's psak, that if a woman takes her chances with one witness, all the penalties of the Mishnah apply. But if the woman marries with two witnesses, she did everything right. What had she done wrong? Okay? In other words, the Bezdin issued a death certificate. There were two witnesses. He died in Pittsburgh. What did she do wrong? So, and the theory here is if she did nothing wrong, she shouldn't have been punished. But Ula says it not so fast. Okay? Mesiv Ula. Ula says, Mi amrina and my have lo ma'avid. Do we really say, what could she have done more? Okay, Vahasanan, we have a Mishnah that says as follows. I have to introduce this. One of the concepts of a get is it has to be letter perfect. And all the facts in the get have to be accurate, okay? So we have a Mishnah. Kosav l'shem malchus she'enu hogenes. If they use the name, in a get, they dated in those days this is the 15th year of King David's reign, like that. But they could use a kind of a secular date. This is the 3rd year of the Roman, right? Or they could say L'Shem Malchus Modai. This is the 3rd year of Achashverosh. Or they could L'Shem Malchus Yavan, the Greek king. Or Binyan Habayis. Or this is the 409th year since they built the Beis Hamikdash. Or Chorvan Habayis, or this is the 99th year since the destruction of the second temple. Hoy Israel of Ma'ariv. The get, the Sofer wrote the get in Eretz Israel, but puts in a city in Bavel. My river of Mizrach. He's writing it in the west, and he writes that the get is to take place in the east, in Israel. In all of these cases, Teitze Mizeh Mizeh. If the woman remarries on the basis of this flawless get, of this flawed get, she has to get a new get from the first husband, and she has to get a get. She cannot remain with the second husband. Okay? Now, why not? Okay? And if there's an error in the get, it falls on her. So you're going to say, am I? Why not? Why is that so? Lema mai have le me'evad. What could she have done differently? So the answer is, Iboila. I would answer you, La akurie legita. She should have, either if she's capable of doing so, read through the get and proofread it, or she should have turned it over to a mumcha and said, please check out this get. Is it okay? So she did not do everything she could possibly do. Okay? So now we're going to argue with that. Omer Rav Simi bar Ashi Taishma, come and listen. Hakaines es Yavam. So if the Yavam marries the Yavama, Vahalcha Tzora Vinase, that would free the co-wife, and she went and got married based on the fact that the Yavam cohabited with the Yavama. Okay, v'nimtzuzu islandess, and it turns out that the woman with whom they did yibum is an islandess, which makes the yibum invalid. So now what happens? Teitze mizeh mizeh. The co-wife has to, has to leave her present husband, and she cannot be taken in yibum by the yavama. Okay, and here the co-wife had nothing to do with anything. The other one was the Yavama that he took. She simply, based on the halacha, went and got married, and yet it's not valid. Okay, what's going? A call had the it's all on her. But amai, what name my havi lama avid? What could she have done to fix it? So the answer is she shouldn't have been so fast to remarry. A boy la ma'atune. She could have waited 6 months or a year to see if the other wife gets pregnant. And if there a reasonable period of time, if the other wife doesn't get pregnant, she would question whether she's free to remarry. So again, we give some tinge of fault. I know her when you're not happy, but we don't have time to argue today. All right. Amar Abaya Tashma, another case. Call a right Sha'amru Potor a Potrais Surosehen, where there's an Arias. Remember at the very beginning, we learned that if the Yavam could not marry the other woman because she was an Arias to him, she was an erva to him. Halchutz, Raros, Vinis, the other women could go marry anybody they want on the basis that there was no requirement of chalitza. Okay? V'nimtza elu Eilonis, and then it turns out that one of the Arias ladies, who was supposed to exempt the other women by simply her relationship to the potential Yavam, what if she was an islandess? So she gets taken off the playing field, and whatever one or four, whatever number of wives left, you exclude her from the calculations, and you would need a yavama, a chalitza or a yibum. and the other women went and got married, but one of them was, but the one who sort of puttered them was an islandess. Everybody has to get divorced, and none of them can go to the other. All of these, the whole situation gets nailed onto the women who remarried. Why? V'amai. Name my havila. What could she have done differently? So a boy lo lamam tune. They should have waited to see if their co-wives are all getting pregnant. In other words, everybody should have waited. No, I don't really understand that case, because if they all have to wait, how do they discover she's an islandess? But in any event, so we're going to challenge. Now we're going to argue further, okay, with this, what could she have done differently case. Omar Rava, Toshma, Rava says, let's look at the following, at this further in that same Mishnah. Because of where the Sofer made a mistake. Another thing the Sofer does, when he writes the get, he writes a second document, which is Susie received Shimon's get. And he gives that paper to the husband. So now she has to get to prove they have a divorce, and he has this receipt to prove that he divorced her. So over here, Kosev Sofer get leish, he wrote the get on behalf of the husband, v'shayver leisha, and the receipt on the behalf of the woman. V'ta'o, but an error was made. V'naisen get leisha, v'shayver leish. He gives the receipt to the man instead of the get, and he gives the get to the woman instead of the receipt. And so when the man hands it, what he thought was the get, over to the wife, it's not a get, it's only a receipt. And when she hands what she thinks is the receipt back to her husband, she's giving the get back to him. So Sof Kol Sof, she never got the get. He's still in possession of the get, and she's still in possession of the receipt. The Nasnu Zelo Zeva Zelo Zed, they hand them back and forth, and she never got the get. The Achazman, later on in time, Hare Haget Yetze Mitachas Yadei Ha'ish. Turns out the husband is still in possession of the get. Okay, the V'shoiver Mitachas Yadei Ha'isha, and the receipt is still in the hands of the woman. So Teitze Mize. She has to divorce the husband she married based on what she thought was a received get. And they have to write a new get, and she has to divorce the old husband. She can't go back to him. And the whole consequence is on her. Her new kids are mamzerim. She has to leave this new happy marriage. Okay. Why? Name my havi lalam. What could she have done differently? So again, the Gemara says, boy le akurye legita. She could have checked that she had the correct document, that she was holding the receipt, not that she was holding the get. And if she doesn't know how to read, she could have had her knowledgeable representative check it out for her. So it's not 100% the Sofer's fault. There is a certain, you're walking out, you're protesting. Oh, it's not 100.
He got paid for.
Why did he keep the
Nobody
money?
else got money for this.
Did he keep the money?
Yeah, the Sofer's fault.
He did his job. He wrote the document.
No, but he got to return.
Excuse me. Look, I said we're not going to. If you go to a lawyer and you write a will, or you write a document, power of attorney, you're supposed to. I mean, you may not have legal knowledge, all the whereases and wherefores, but you can make sure that the names are right. You can make sure that the power of attorney is going. If there's a blatant flaw. If you're not holding a get, that's a pretty blatant flaw. Gates that
She didn't read it. That's
It's
plain.
very-
She didn't look at it.
That's right.
You have a responsibility to at least be involved in what you're doing. That's what the Gemara says. We're going further. And whether the Sofer did his job.
That's it.
Okay, let me give you.
Always carry errors and omissions.
If you bring your if you bring your vacuum cleaner to a repair shop, and you say to him, Yontif is Tuesday. I have to have this done by Friday afternoon or at the absolute latest Monday morning. So I have time to vacuum Erev Yontif. And then you get there early Monday morning and you say to him, where's my vacuum cleaner? He says, I'm sorry, I got backed up. I'll have it ready for you on Thursday. You say, that's a big problem for me. That's Chol Hamoed. He says, what can I do? Nevertheless, you have a choice. You can let him keep the vacuum cleaner, or you can pay him even though he didn't get it done in time. The halacha is that. Why? Because you would have had to fix it anyway. The time is an inconvenience for you, but he did the work, he gets paid. That's analogous to this. He did the work, an error was made. That doesn't undo the fact that he did the work. Let's go weiter. Omer Rav Ashi, Taishma, another case. Shina Shma Yushma. The Sofer misspelled either the husband's name or the wife's name. Sham Irai, Sham Ira. He misspelled the town the husband lived in or the town the wife is now living in. That would invalidate the get. Tate say mizeh. They both. She has to divorce the new husband, and she has to repeat the divorce from the first husband. And the whole thing is on her. Why? Nema my havi le'me'evid. We ask, what could she have done differently? Again, iboy la akruye legita. She should have checked or had the get checked for accuracy. One more case. There is such a thing as a get kareach. All right, here's the deal. We know in the past we've learned that anybody can remarry his wife unless she had an intervening husband, except the Kohen. So supposing a Kohen gets so pissed off at his wife that he says, I'm giving her a get. So the rabbis wanted to slow things down. And this get ceremony is a very awe-inspired, not complicated, but the atmosphere is very heavy there. So what the rabbis made a rule that you write a couple words of the get, and then you fold the cloth, and then you get the witnesses to sign on the fold. Then below the fold, the sofer starts writing again. Few more words. Then you fold it, and the witnesses sign on the back of the fold. Then you fold it again, and you repeat this over and over till the whole gets written. So it takes Taka 20 minutes, a half an hour to get the get written on the hope that the guy is going to calm down and change his mind. Okay, that's the case.
That's the Gemara and getting those.
Yes. Rav Papa Sover, already I skipped. Okay. Tashma, let's learn. Kanase begit koireya. A man uses one of these folded sign kitten, and a line is left, and a signature is left off. The witness signature is missing in a fold, so it's called bald. Okay. The get is invalid. She has to repeat the divorce from the first guy, and if she married on the basis of it, she has to second guy has to get rid of her. Again, you want to ask, why is it her fault? Because She should have opened up the folds, checked that everything was correct. It's just one more repetition of the woman has to take responsibility that everything was done properly. Okay? Rav Papa Sover, Lama Aved Uvda B'mai Have Lama Evet. Rav Papa said there was a real case came to him, a real husband and wife. And what happened was, remember, we started the shir by saying that if there were two witnesses, then there was no get issues. There were two witnesses said her husband died far away. She did nothing wrong. And we asked, what could she have done differently? And in there's really nothing she could have done differently. So the assumption was that we hold that then she can go back to the first husband, which is the least damaging. We can't stay with the second husband because that's sus. You can't undo the fact that those children are mamzerim, but you can loosen the rules and say she can go back to the first husband.
Why can't you stay with the second husband?
Because that's nus. There's a halacha asil labal asil laboel. If you sleep with a man other than your husband, not only do you have to get a divorce from your husband, you're not allowed to be with that second man.
Okay.
All right. So there was a real case. A man comes back from overseas, and his wife has a happy new family. Okay, and Rav Papa wanted to paskin that she could go home to the first husband. That was his inclination. And in a discussion at the Bezdin, before they finalized the rule, Omerle Rav Huna Berei de Rav Yoshia Le Rav Papa, one of the, either someone else or one of the other judges says to Rav Papa, Vahatanya Kol Hani Masnisa. But we had all these cases where there is some tinge of culpability on the woman's part. Now here there is no tinge of culpability, but we have no precedent. In all these other cases, we say they have to get divorced. So Omar, okay. So Omar lay, so he replies to Rav Yehoshua, Valav Shaninahu, didn't we give an explanation in each of those cases why there's some tinge of culpability? Here, there's no such tinge of culpability in her. She did absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever. So Omar Lay, Rav Huna says back to Rav Papa, Ashinuye Leikulis Moch. But are we going to actually set a precedent and let this wife move back to her husband based on all these on kulas that are hypothetical mentioned in the Mishnah? So Pasuk, Rav Papa stopped writing his tshuva that she could go back to the husband, and he stuck with the precedent that she could not remain married to number two, and she could not return to number one. So apparently that became the bottom line at that point. But Rav Ashi is now, we're going to go back and we're going to say, what if it wasn't two witnesses? What if it was only one witness and rishus from the Bezdin? Rav Ashi, Ula Kala Lo Chashinan. What happens if Rivka, a witness comes, tells Bezdin Rivka's husband died? Rivka goes and marries someone else based on permission of Bezdin. Now, at some point in time, not witnesses come, but a rumor starts. You know, last Thursday, I saw Chaim Schwartz in the mall holding hands with a cute blonde. And wasn't his wife remarried on the basis of the Bezdin said he was dead? So there's such a rumor. Now, it's not a Bezdin. There's no psak from a Bezdin that she has to get divorced. It's just a rumor. So high color, what's the timeline of this rumor? Elema color ubasar nisuyin. If the rumor starts and she ignores the chatter in the by the pool, and she remarries anyway, ha amra Rav Ashi chada zimna. Rav Ashi already told us what happens in that case. The Amar Rav Ashi, we're finally where we're supposed to be. Kol the basar nisuyin lo chashinan. Only if these rumors start after she already married number two. Again, Erwin, no witnesses, just a rumor. So if she remarried before the rumor, we ignore the rumor. She didn't do anything wrong. Okay? So Mao Detema, what might you have suggested? Hawil va'asai lebeidina leshurinan. Since the woman started the whole process by finding an aid and bringing her to him to the Bezdin or her to the Bezdin to get herself reshus to remarry, Bekala the Machme Nisuyin Dami. Since she started the process of being freed from the non-present husband, we should assume that the rumor is global and it was started before she remarried. Okay, and the sitsar, she should be prohibited to husband too. So this Irwin should be an uproar at this point, but the halacha is not like that. Kamash Malan, Ravashi explains, even though she started the process and got this special dispensation, if the rumor was after she remarried, she can ignore that and remain with that man. Nisas al pi bezdin teitze. Now the Mishnah had said if she remarries based on one witness and the husband shows up again, so she can't stay with number two, she's still an Eshesish. She cannot return to number one. She's not allowed to be married to either one. That's the halacha. That's what the Mishnah said. Amar Ziri of Ziri says, Irwin, listen carefully. Leisa Lamas Nisan Miditane Be Midrasha. We ignore that clause in the Mishnah based on a brisa we learned in the yeshivas. The Tane Be Midrasha, because the brisa that's taught in all the yeshivas, Hoiru Bezdin Shikak Chama. If here's the case, it's a terribly rainy Shabbos like we had this week, and it was pitch black about say 6 o'clock in the evening. So people went to the Bezdin and they said, "What's the deal? Is Shabbos over?" They didn't have watches, so the Bezdin said the sun set already. They did the best they could, and they paskined it's no longer Shabbos. Ulisov Zorcha. And then the clouds part right after the rabbis say Shabbos is over. And it's sunny, and it's not yet Shabbos. Okay? Ein zu hara'ah. So the answer, the way we resolve that problem, is we say what the Bezdin declared was not a psak, was not a hara'ah. It was simply ela ta'os. It was simply a mistake. It was an error. Okay? So coming back to women, this is the answer to Irwin's question over and over. If it turns out that the one witness was lying or misinformed, and now the husband appears, what the Bezdin had paskined retroactively is not a hara'ah. It was simply an error. Okay?
You bring a carbon? Does the Bezdin bring a carbon?
I don't know. I don't know. But the woman would not have to because she relied on the Bezdin. They might bring korban helam dover. I don't know. Okay, it's not a Sanhedrin, so I don't know whether a Bezdin would or not. I'll check on that and let you know. Rav Nachman Aimer hara'ahu. No, when the Bezdin paskins, you can't wiggle out of it. It's an error. Hara is hara. It is a ruling, and therefore that's why the Mishnah said she doesn't bring a korban because she relied on the hara's Bezdin. However, it's not factual. Omer Rav Nachman, Teda, the hara'ahi, it is a ruling, okay? The bechol atayra kula ad eid echad lo mehemnon. Because the general principle is one witness is inadequate, okay? And over here, v'hacha mehemon. Over here, we do believe that one witness, okay? My time. Why do we accept that one witness? Because lav mashum the hara'ahi. Because the Bezdin declares that's the deal. Therefore, it's not simply an error. It is a hara'ah with all the consequences. Omer Rava, Teda, I disagree. Teda detoisi. It's simply a blunder, an error. It is not a valid psak. The elu haru bezdin v'chelev v'dam u'letahera. If the bezdin were to make a decision that a disputed piece of meat is not chelev, or a disputed container of reddish liquid is not blood. V'hadar hazu time at the isura, and later on they discover that factually it should be usser. It was really chalev. It wasn't shuman. It was really blood. It wasn't gravy. Okay. Ki hadare viamre lehetera. If they next time somebody brings the same kind of material back, and the next time they do the same thing, lo mashkichan lebahu, we wouldn't listen to them. If we know that this Bezdin screws up on making the difference between Chalev and Shuman, you wouldn't go to them again with a Chalev and Shuman issue. However, V'elu Heicha Da'asa Eid Echad, but where there is only one witness, Sharina, we do allow the woman to remarry. Asutre asarna. And then later on, two witnesses come and say the husband was really alive. We would not let her remarry if she hadn't yet remarried. Ki hadar asa ad acharina sharina law. So in the next case, by that same Bezdin, if one witness now comes, okay, a witness comes and said Reuben died in Pittsburgh, and the Bezdin says, okay, she can remarry, but she hasn't yet. Now two witnesses come and say 2 days after he was supposedly dead in Pittsburgh, we saw him in Philadelphia alive and well. Okay. And then another witness comes and said, I saw him as a big car crash on Route 95 on the way down to Boca. He died again. Right? So what would we do? Would we let her remarry again? Another witness came, Zacharina, after all of that. Sharin and law, would you let her remarried? And yeah, we would. My timer, why? Lav Mishum, the Ta'os who we consider the whole first experience with one witnesses and two witnesses an error, not a bad hara'ah. So the Bezdin still has standing to give her permission on the basis of one witness. Now, in practical terms, I don't know if they would, but halachically, they're allowed to. Okay, now we're going to prove that. V'af Rabbi Eliezer sover de ta'osu. Rabbi Eliezer also says that when the Bezdin makes a mistake using this only one witness, it's an error, not a bad psak. The Sanya, we have a brisa based on a woman with one witness. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer, Yaakov Hadin Esahar. That's like making a tunnel through a mountain. You poked a hole through a mountain. In other words, it was an error, it wasn't a psak. And the woman has to bring a korban. He uses a poetic language. V'tavi chatas shemena. She has to find the fattest animal possible to be her chatas. Okay, that she definitely has to bring a korban. If you argue correctly that it was just a mistake by Bezdin, Mishum Hochi Masna Korban, that's why she has to bring a korban. If you say it was a valid psak by the Bezdin and she acts on the word of the Bezdin, Amai Masya Korban, why would she have to bring a korban? We learned earlier she doesn't have to bring a korban if she relies on a psak. So that's taka proof that such an error is not a psak. Okay? Vidilma Kasover Rabbi Eliezer Yachid Sha'asa V'Hara'as Bezdin Chayiv. Maybe he doesn't agree with the idea that if you act on the Bezdin's psak and it turns out you did something wrong, we said earlier you're putter from a korban achatis or an asham if you're not sure. But maybe he doesn't agree with that principle. That's why he makes her bring a korban. Imkain ma Yokov hadin esahar. Why would he use this tremendously definitive language? You bored a tunnel through a mountain. He was trying to make it very, his guzma, his exaggeration was an emphasis on the wrong syllable. Okay, that's the, okay. V'horuha bezdin v'hinose. So what if they do rule, the land of the Mishnah, they do rule and she does remarry. Oh, no, I'm sorry. At the end of the Mishnah, the Bezdin told her, you're free from the dead husband and you may remarry. But she's been sitting around the house for 11 years with nothing to do. And she has this surge of a sense of freedom and she starts dating wildly. And she starts acting in a znussi manner. That's what happened next. So the Bezdin said, the Mishnah told us that she has to bring a korban then, because what the Bezdin gave her permission to do was to remarry, not to be a party girl. Okay? My kilkala. The Lashon of the Mishnah was she's kilkala, she's immoral. Okay? My kilkala. What exactly did she do that was immoral? She's a free woman. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer Znisa. She's sleeping around not being married. Rabbi Yochanan Aimer Almana Lakoin Gadol. No, that was a euphemism. What she actually did was go marry a Kohen Gadol, and she was an almana. Or Gerusha v'chalutza l'kohen hedyot, or the Bezdin, the husband returned and he made her give her a get, etc., and now she's a chalutza and she married a kohen. So this is sort of interesting because the Gemara takes as an assumption Jewish women don't sleep around. So that had to be a euphemism for something else. And it's a euphemism for an improper relationship with a Kohen. Okay? Manda Omer Zinsa, the one who says it really was immorality. Kol Shekain Almana Kohen Gadol. Obviously, a woman who marries a Kohen Gadol, they'd both have to bring korbanos each and every time they were in bed together. Manda Omer Almana Kohen Gadol, but the one who says we're talking about an Almana Kohen Gadol, Alva Zinsalo, she would not have to bring korbanos every time she slept with a date. Okay? My timer, why not? Why shouldn't she bring a korban? The Amra, she would argue, Asanhu, the Shavisin Panua. You, the Bezdin, made me a single woman, and I can behave as I choose. It is only improper. It isn't a korban worthy Aveira for a single woman to have a relationship with a man. Okay, next. Tanya Kavase the Rabbi Yochanan, we have a brisa that backs up Rabbi Yochanan's position. Horu habezdin laha nase. If there's one witness and the bezdin that gives the death certificate and lets her remarry with special papers, halacha v'kilkula, and after that, after she gets this special dispensation to remarry, she says, not so fast, I want to sow my wild oats first. Okay? Kigon Omana Kohen Gadol, either because of the argument to Kohen Gadol, Garush V'chalutza Kohen Hedyot, okay? The Chayeves Bekorban Al Kol Biyabiyah. So she would have to bring a korban for each and every intimate act with that Kohen. So she lived with him for 2 weeks, and it was early in the relationship. They did it a lot. She'd be piling up the animals. Okay?
What about the Cohen himself?
Him too.
He also has
Yeah, of course. They both did the sin. It typically takes 2 to tango.
Yeah, but in a lot of these cases, the woman is the only.
No, the woman, because the man owns the woman. I mean, a lot of this follows that it's not really piling it on the woman. It's that the woman bears certain responsibilities. She has the children, and the Metzias is, it comes out on the woman. But where there's a sin, the man brings a korban too. Okay, and if a man were to rape a woman, he would bring a korban, she wouldn't. Okay, anyway, weiter. She has to have sex. She has to bring a separate korban for each and every intimate act. Rabbi Eliezer. That's Rabbi Eliezer's statement. However, the Chachamim say, no, it's sort of a global Aveira. Okay? Korban echad al hakol. She brings only one korban, no matter how many times they slept together. Umaydim chachamim leRebbi Eliezer, but the rabbis do agree with Rebbe Eliezer. That's if she married only one man and she was with him 58 times. I mean, who knows? She doesn't have to go back and see what her diary says and bring a zillion korbanos. The rabbis agree with Rebbe Eliezer. If she has a series of marriages, legitimate kosher marriages, supposedly, after the declaration that her husband is dead, and then 7 marriages into her life, husband 1 shows up again, okay? Shechayeves bekorban al kol echad bi'echad. She would have to bring a separate korban for each retroactively incorrect marriage, right? Why? Hoil the gufen meyuchlakin. Because you can't argue that it's helam echad, it's one set relationship. Each time she remarried, it's something separately wrong. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the woman is left behind when her husband and the 9-year-old kid go to Spain. Okay? Ha'isha shahaylech baila ubana lemedinas hayam. The woman is left behind. The husband and the kid both go overseas. Bovi amrullah. Mace Bailey, witness, they come. Now, again, this is plural, so it's probably one witness, right? They come and they say, your husband died on Thursday.
If it's plural, why do you say it's one?
What? Because in the first Mishnah, it said Amru, and it turned out to be one witness.
Okay.
So I'm hypothecating here the same answer, the same translation. We will find out later. Okay? V'achar kach meis banech. Your husband died on Monday. Your son died on Thursday, for example. V'nises, and based on that information, she remarries. And it had to be Beheter Bezdin, right? V'achar kach amru lo chiluch hadvarim. We made a mistake. It was your husband who died on Monday, and it was your kid who died on Monday, and your husband died on Thursday, but she married on Wednesday. Tate say she has to leave the second husband. And it doesn't even have to be she married on Wednesday. She could have married 2 months later. But once the husband dies, she has a zika to him. And there was no yibum or chalitza over here. So she violated the zika and she has to leave the husband. And if this second relationship that is considered retroactively invalid produces children, v'havlad rishon v'achron mamzer. And it doesn't matter if she conceived this kid before the new information came, or she conceived this kid after the correction information came. Doesn't matter, the kid's a mamzer. Okay? Amrullah Mace Bonech. Now, what if they tell her first your kid died? The Akakach Mace Ba'alech, and then later on your husband died. Vinis Yavma. And based on this second information, her allegedly dead husband's big brother marries her, takes her in Yibum. V'akakach amrullah chiluf hayu hadavarim. We made a mistake, and the husband died first, and then the kid died. Teitze, she has to leave the Yavam. Now that's a little complicated. Why? We'll find out. V'havlad rishon v'achron mamzer. And any children born from the levirate marriage, whether they are conceived or born prior to the correction information or after the correction information, they're mamzerim. Next case, amrullah meis bailech. They tell a woman your husband died. Denise says she marries based on that information. V'achar kach amrullah kayim hoya. They tell the woman your husband died in January. She remarries in February. They come back and say, no, he was in a coma. He didn't die until March. Okay? Umes, and he died in March. Havlad Rishon Mamzer, the child born during the interim while he was in the coma, and it was an illegitimate relationship, and she was a balas nus. That child is a mamzer. V'ha'achara, but the child born after the husband died, where she was no longer an ashes ish, in that circumstance, if their timing is fortunate, Ainumam said there's nothing wrong with the kid. Next case. Amrullah Meis Bailech. They tell her your husband died. Vinis Kadsha. She does erusin with somebody but doesn't complete the marriage. The Achar Kach Babaila. And during the interim between erusin and Nisuyin, the husband pops up. Muteris Lachser Lo. She hasn't yet remarried or committed bia with number two. So they ignore the erusin and they go back and they allow her to return to her first husband. And the second guy goes off and licks his wounds. Okay? Afalpi shenasan la acharon get. Now, what if the second husband, the arusa, gives her a get, and now the first husband dies? So halachically, she's a widow from husband one, and she has a get for whatever reason from the arusa. Okay? Lo pasla min kahuna. Since the second marriage, almost marriage, was not valid on its face, the get from that guy is meaningless. And therefore, she's stam a widow and she can marry a Kohen Hedyot. Okay? Esu Doresh Reb Elazar ben Masna. The rationale for this last ruling is based on a drasha from this Rebbe Lazar. The Isha Gerusha may Isha. A Kohen may not take a wife who was divorced from her husband. Okay? Velo may ish she'enu isha. And all the getting in the world don't disqualify her if they're given by someone who's not her husband.
Could a Kohen marry a Zono?
A zona?
Yeah.
You mean a legitimate,
No,
a woman
now.
who is known? No,
No, not a.
no.
I'm talking about now. She
No,
had
no,
she had relations with
no.
the second guy.
No. But she didn't. She's only in Arusa.
But she had relations.
No,
No.
the Gemara, the Mishnah is talking about a man who did Erusin with her, but not Nesuya. So she has not yet slept with anybody. As a matter of fact, even Basmana said, why can a Kohen not marry a Geyores? On the list of people who he can't marry, one of them is because whether she could be 8 years old, the assumption is non-Jews do not have the same moral standards we do, and we put her in a chazaka of sleeping around. Doesn't matter if she goes to 42 doctors and proves she's never been with a man. She has a chazaka of being a Zaina. And a Kohen can marry her. I mean, okay, but no, a Kohen can't marry. He can't marry a guru. He can't marry a Geyores, a Gerusha. He can't marry a Mamzeris. I mean, but he can marry a widow. He can't. Okay. That's all from Psukim. In any event, we had before in the Mishnah, the kids at the beginning or the kids at the end of the second relationship, in most cases didn't matter, they're mamzerim. In one case, it mattered a lot because the later kids were not mamzerim. My rishon or my acharon, what do we mean by first and last? Ilema rishon lifnei shemua. If you say Rishon means before the news comes, the second news that it wasn't a legal marriage, the Acharon le'achar Shemua, and the latter means that after the news comes. What's the difference? Who cares when the news comes? She was never allowed to be married to that guy. So, Lisnei Havlad Mamzer. What do we put in Acharon and Rishon? Let her simply say anytime she has a kid from a man who's not a legitimate husband is a mamzer. So Mishum de Kaboi Lamasne Seifa. Because the last case where it was the Yibum case and then he did die, so the Yibum marriage becomes retroactively sort of valid. Okay, Amrullah Meis Bailech. In that case, when they tell her your husband's dead, Benises, and in that basis she marries. He was still alive. He was in a coma, but he died later. So now it makes a difference. Harishon mamzer, a kid born or conceived while the husband was in the coma. That kid's a mamzer. For achron ain't a mamzer. But the kid born after the husband died is certainly not a mamzer. Okay, so we need that case. So therefore, to make it easier to memorize the Mishnah, they used Achron and Rishon in the other cases where it didn't make a difference. Tananami Reisha taught it again at the beginning. Rishon v'Achron mamzer. Okay, now what happens when the Yavama marries someone other than the Yavam? That was one of our cases, without waiting for him to decide what he's going to do. So we say that she's ruptured the Zika, and that's grounds enough to make the kids mamzerim. But that's not so fast, Abramowitz. Tana Rabbanan, Zu, Divrei, Rebbe Akiva. That is in accord with Rebbe Akiva's ruling. Shahaya Omer, Ein Kedushin, Taifsin, B'chayev, Lavin. Remember, there are different categories. There are Kores level issues where you marry an erva or sleep with an erva. There are rabbinic level Lavin, a Kohen marrying a Zona. That's Rabbi Akiva says such, or a man marrying a shnia. Any of those, according to Rabbi Akiva, a lav marriage is not tofes, it's stamznus, and the kids are mamzerim. According to everybody else, b'di'evid, the marriage is tofes. They're supposed to get divorced. They may have to bring a korban for being together, maybe every time, depending on who you hold like. But technically, the marriage counts. So the kid can't be a mamzer. So we have to go back and apply this. According to Rabbi Akiva, Shahaya Omer Ein Kedushin Taifsin B'chayev Lavin, where she jumped the gun and married, breaking the Zika. She didn't rupture a marriage, she ruptured a Zika. Okay? But the rabbis would say all she did was the love of jumping the gun, not waiting for the brother to take an action. Ein mamzer biyavama. So it would not be a mamzer if all she did was violate her bond to the yavama. Okay? V'leima ein mamzer mechayve lavin. So the Chachamim say that children are never mamzerim if it's only chayav lavin. Hi Tana, that's going like the following Tana. Hach Tana Divrei Akiva, who our Mishnah, where it says the kid is a mamzer, is a Tana who paskins or who at least reports what he learned in the name of Rabbi Akiva, and he holds like that. The Omer Mechai Lavin Shar Chayve Mamzer, Have Mamzer, that children produced by marriages of a Chayve Lavin category are always Mamzerim. Mechayve Lavin Grady Law Chayve Mamzer. If you get married, but the ruling is if you get married by simply violating a law, the kid is not a mamzer. Omer Reb Yehuda, okay, and Omer Rav. Turn the page. Menayin she'en kedushin taisvin biyavama. On what basis would we say that the marriage is invalid if the woman runs off and marries someone other than her yavam? Okay, what would be the argument for that? Okay, Shenemar, because the Torah says, Lo sihiya eshes hameis hayaytze leish zar. Pasuk says outright, the wife of the dead man cannot go marry a stranger. She has to keep it in the family. Okay? Kol teheba the Have Lazar, when it says it should not be, it's in the future, it should not be. That means that the marriage cannot happen. In other words, a woman whose husband is dead cannot be married to a stranger. So we interpret that to mean even if she goes through the formulas of being married, it's not effective. That would be one way of darshaning the pasuk, and therefore the kid would be mamzerim. Okay? But Shmuel Oimer, Ba'ani Yusenu. Shmuel says, based on our poverty, this is a poetic expression, based on our inability to be absolutely certain we got the interpretation of the pasuk right, we would, even though we would hold it's not a valid marriage, but maybe we didn't get the interpretation right. So based on that small possibility that it was a valid marriage, we make this guy give her a get. Okay? Now, the Gemara is going to say what I just said. Misafka leidel Shmuel hai lo tihiye eshes hameis. That Shmuel said, I'm not 100% certain on this interpretation of that should not be, the marriage should not be. Ila lav, who, if it's simply a lav, the asa, we're talking about stam a lav, either lo tafse, or be kedushin, who the asa, or if the, is this pasuk simply giving you a lav, or is this pasuk coming along and saying such a marriage cannot happen, and if they try to have it happen, it's invalid? I don't know. That's why I make her give her a get. Amalei Rav Mari bar Rachel. He's called Rav Mari bar Rachel because she was kidnapped as a young woman, and the people who kidnapped her had their way with her. And when she came back, they redeemed her. She was pregnant and she had a baby. So rather than say Ben Russia, that they say they don't even know which of those guys is the father. So he's always in the Gemara referred to as Ben Rachel, the son of Rachel. So this Omer le Rav Mari bar Rachel le Rav Ashi, he says to Rav Ashi, Hachi Omer Ameimar told me, Halacha kavase de Shmuel, we follow Shmuel. We say that the second man has to give her a get on the possibility that it's only a law. Omer Rav Ashi, but Rav Ashi replies, now that we say that she does, if she gets kedushin from another fellow, or she has to have a get. What if the yavam is a kohen? She's married to a kohen, and a second man marries her. Now, what can the yavam do? He can't take her now because of the possibility that maybe the second marriage was valid. So chayleitz law, the Kohen has to do chalitza with her, v'shar, and now once the Kohen does chalitza, she could marry number two at that point. So we allow her to remain with him. Okay, but all right. Now, is Gore Iskar, should the husband make money based on this? In other words, she's got a lot of property, big suba. If she does yibum, that money stays in the Schwartz family. But she just went and married a Abramowitz. She's got her nichsei melug, her son Barzel. The money she gets from the from the ksuba. So now Mr. Two, not only has he got a gorgeous wife, he gets a lot of gelt. Okay? Imkain, Matzino, Chayte, Niskar. So here we're paying somebody for committing a sin. Ella im hoya yavama Yisrael. So he said, no, only in the case where the yavam was a Yisrael, nice and la sheni get. The second one has to give her a get out suffix. And since probably that get isn't worth the paper it's written on, or the cloth it's written on, she goes back and the Yavam gets his opportunity to keep all that stuff in the family. Vahutra law, she goes back to the Yavam and he can marry her. Okay? Omer of Gidl, Omer of Chia, Bar Yosef, Omer Rav. We have a Messiah that traces back to Rav. Yavama Kedushin Ainba. When it comes to a Yavama, Kedushin, that's Erusin, doesn't apply to her. Nisuyin Yeshba. But if somebody else did Nisuyin, then that's Misa, and that does apply to her. So what we think we're talking about is the Yavama based on Eid Echad, right? Because that's been pretty much the topic of the last several days. So that's our initial assumption. A Kedushin ain't, but if the Kedushin is meaningless because there was only Eid Echad and now witnesses that her husband showed up, Nisuyin Nami ain't, but what's the difference? Nisuyin also is invalid. Alma Kedushin b'Nisuyin ain't, but so absolutely. You're correct. And what Rav probably said was neither Kedushin nor Nisuyin is valid because she's still an Ashes each. If you prefer, we could say my Nisuyin Yeshba. What does it mean that Nisuyin is valid? Kiznus. What it means is the fact that she went into a chuppah with this guy, the fact that she performed Nisuyin, we make the assumption that they had bia. Every time we have a wedding, the couple goes into the yichud room and they eat a piece of cake. Halachically, that's them having bia. Now, nobody assumed, I mean, in reality, there's never been a couple of which I'm aware that had bia in the yichud room. But Nisuyin equals bia. What?
They become so firm nowadays that they have separate yichud rooms.
I understand. Okay, very good. Kiderev Hamnuna and Rav is holding by the Tana Rav Hamnuna, the Omer Rav Hamnuna, Shomeris Yavam Shizinsa. If a woman is a Shomeris Yavam, she's waiting for the Yavam to take action one way or the other, and she goes out and fools around with somebody, Asura Yavama. Now she's not allowed to marry the Yavam because she broke the Zika by the intimacy with the stranger. Okay, but from her side, the Zika is broken, but from his side, it still exists. So he has to do chalitza. Okay? Or if you prefer, we could say it a different way. Actually, what Rav said was Kedushin doesn't matter, but Nisuyin does matter. Kedushin ainba, Kedushin doesn't matter. Nisuyin yeshba, but the Nisuyin does matter. The mechalfa be'isha shahaylech ba'ila medina sayam, because we're not talking about a disappearing husband. We're talking about a regular case, and if we allow her to just go home again when it was only Nisuyin. In other words, the husband didn't disappear; he's just wandering around. Whatever it is, he abandoned her. And if we allow her to go home again, he finally shows up. We might make the mistake of confusing it with the overseas case. So as a pro forma gesture, we make the strange man give her a get. Okay. Rav Yanai b'chabura nemnu v'gamru. In the chabura. Now, this is it. There was no Sanhedrin. There was no Anshe Knesset Gedola, but there were a bunch of heavy hitters in Yavne or somewhere, and they were dealing with halacha. So we call those guys the Chabura. The Chabura, Nimnu, Vigamru, they took a vote and they concluded by consensus, everybody agreed, Ein Kedushin Taisvin B'Yavama, Yavama, who goes and has Kedushin, who's an Erusin with an outside party, not a member of the family. It's as if it never happened. We ignore it, okay? Amarle Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says to this Rabbi Yanai who read this report, Rebbe lo Mishnah Seinu Hayazu. Rebbe, didn't we already learn this in our Mishnah? The Tanan ha'aymer li isha harei at mikudeshes li la'achar sheniskayer. If in the middle of Kedushin, okay, a non-Jew comes to a woman and says to her, he's gorgeous, he's rich, his only flaw is he's not Jewish. So he says, I want to convert and marry you. Problem is, the rabbis won't let me convert to marry you because that's an ulterior motive. And if I don't lie, the rabbis won't let me do it. So I've got a solution. Let's do Kedushin. Now I can honestly say to the rabbis, I'm not converting for the sake of marriage because we're already married, so to speak. But I'll convert, and we won't do the Nisuy until after I actually convert. That's what he does. Okay? Ha'amr Elisha, he says to the woman, Hare at mikudeshes li la'achar sheniskayer. We'll count this betrothal as if it's deferred till we go through the conversion. Okay? La'achar sheniskayer. Or he says to her, to a non-Jewish woman, I'll give you the ring now, so you can go and tell the rabbis that you're not converting for the sake of marriage. And then after you actually convert, we'll consider it that's when I gave you the ring.
Is that legal? Is he allowed to give it a ring before?
No.
Oh.
That we're going to get there. We're not. No, of course not. Okay. Oh, la'achar shenis charari, or you give this gorgeous little slave girl, right? You go visit Reuven. Reuven's got this gorgeous little slave girl. So you take her aside and you say, here's a diamond ring. You can't use a diamond ring. Here's a gold band. I'll talk your boss into freeing you, and we'll be considered that we did Kedushin at the time of Mrs. Schwartz a ring, and you say, I want to marry you the minute Shiva's up. Here's a ring. We'll say the Kedushin happens the minute he plotzes, right? La'achar shetamus achusei. Or you make another condition which is not directly related. I'll give you the ring now, but I can't marry you because I'm married to your sister. So let's get engaged now. And the minute your sister dies, we'll announce the engagement loosely. That's not the actual, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm not confusing you with that loose language.
No.
Okay. So, or another case. What?
Waiting to knock off his wife.
Waiting to knock off his wife. Or another case We know that you can't marry the girl. We just said earlier, you can't marry the girl if she's waiting for the yavam. But she's utterly breathtakingly beautiful. She's got the best personality in the world. She's got tons of money. And you're scared to death that a minute she's free, there'll be suitors flocking from everywhere. So you say to her, let me give you a ring now. And we know that Reuven has as many wives as he can handle. So he's definitely going to do chalitza. So let me give you the ring now. And the minute you kick her, you give him the boot and spit in his face, we'll be engaged, right? Eina mikudeshes. None of these cases are considered a valid erusin. And we'll stop there. And we're almost up to time. What?
That's where we stopped 7.5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's very funny. Okay. I wasn't doing it 7.5 years ago, so don't blame me. But we mamish caught up.
Good day.
Thank you for joining us. How come you always go to this 8:30 minion?
No, I go to 7:45.
Where?
Wolverton.
Oh, that's the COVID menu.
Which one?
The covert minion.
COVID.
Yeah, it's not COVID anymore. It's a covert minion.
People get now with COVID over there.
There's a lot of COVID.
Nobody
understand.
gets COVID in Wolverton.
No.
Nobody gets COVID in Willerton. Where does Cheslow live?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's in C. He doesn't-
Oh, C is it's Chutzlamach.
Josh
I hear.
Josh, no?
He never comes there.
Makes a
Oh,
difference, huh?
Well, he can't even if he wants to.
Nice.
He's constrained.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the president.
I know. Yeah.
Take a more human tell us here.
So actually, you're gonna buy some cookies or what?
No, Bob, of course none of those are valid. But the Gemara just wants to go through all those
Right.
weird possibilities and tell you none of them
right.
count.
And I would like to hear you
What's
say.
it,
that
Marvin?
when you
Marvin's
talk
in the hospital with COVID?
Who?
Marvin's in the hospital.
He's in the hospital?
And Shirley.
Yeah.
Shirley's home?
No,
No,
she's
both.
both
Mr.
in
and
both in
Mrs.
the
COVID.
hospital.
Oh,
She gets
man.
COVID on top of the pneumonia.
Right.
Never. Well, you know, this new strain,
Yes, it's not.
although it's much less
The children.
serious with young
Yeah,
people,
but 65
it
and
is
older.
more lethal
Right.
with old people. And everybody is pretending COVID's gone. And we end up killing all these old people. Fortunately, we're all not old people.
My granddaughter picked it up.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, we got the.
Your name Marty?
Hey.
We're Kipper members, Marty.
Your granddaughter?
My granddaughter picked it up.
But it was probably just mild. Or you don't know yet.
No, I spoke to her last night. She said she's got a
Miserable.
cold.
Huh? She's
Said
miserable.
she's got a cold.
She's miserable. Yeah, that's how it typically is with younger people.
Okay, yes, correct. Thank you.
The Ritsuya is what got damp from sweat and I can't get it off.
We'll have to do an extraction.
Do an extraction. Okay, there I go.
Have a good one.
Same to you. Be well. Oh, I didn't put it in my book.